that's just business, I don't know, and I need a job, please. Those are the options there. So, Lagos, I want to know where you guys and beyond. I don't know where you stand on this issue. There's two sides to this argument. On the one hand, we need to save Nigerian workers. Unemployment is climbing. I've been singing on this show repeatedly that we have not got our updated unemployment figures from the Bureau of Statistics since Q3 of 2018. We don't Unemployment is surely higher. It was 20 something 20% back in 23.1 or so back in Q3 2018. Where is it now? Is it 25%, 26, 27? Is it 30% or higher? Breadwinners in this country are being affected. People who need to put food on the table are being laid off. Their salaries are being cut. So from that perspective, some would commend the regulator, the central bank, for bringing together members of the bankers committee who are representing the banking sector and say, hey, look, now is not the time to be laying off workers. You folks need to suspend this for now. COVID-19 has affected businesses and we can't be laying off people. Last week, we were talking about the central bank finally saying that they will sell Forex, make Forex available to parents that want to pay school fees, SMEs that want to import required raw materials, and I think they sell to BDCs. If you're a parent paying school fees, you cannot pay the school fees if you're not working, right? So that's one side of the argument. The regulator has to do something to protect workers who need the help. On the other side of the argument, should regulators be doing this? Should you be dictating to private sector players whether or not they should be able to lay off workers? Because you can make an argument that, yes, the average Nigerian that is putting food on the table needs to continue to be able to put food on the table. Don't lay them off. But what about the average business? The average business has higher operating costs in this environment, especially the banking sector. They jacked up CRR, the cash reserve ratio, to 27.5% from 22.5. They jacked up the loan deposit ratio from 60 to gone up to 65. They've been penalizing banks that do not meet up with those ratios. So a lot of more cash that banks have is being held with the CBN. You're telling them to lend more, and if they don't meet up to it, they are being debited. Of course, some of those funds are refunded later on. I should add that. But the environment for the banks now is tough. There are people who have seen salary cuts and are laid off, who have loans. I'm thinking NPLs are going to climb this year. We've already seen some Q1 results from a number of tier 1 banks, a couple tier 2 banks. Things aren't looking that rosy, and that's Q1. Remember, the tough times didn't really start until the middle, towards the end of March. Q2, it might be a lot uglier. So on the other hand, can you as a regulator tell a bank that you cannot lay off staff when the bank's operating costs are spiking, right? Look at Access Bank after the merger with Diamond. I believe their personnel costs went from 57 billion naira in 2018 to 75 billion in 2019. Operating costs spiked. In fact, speaking of Access Bank, they've been in the news as well. I mean, first, there was news coming out that they were closing some branches due to them, they aren't laying off staff due to COVID-19 and some of the issues. But then just this morning, I saw an official statement from the bank saying that they are not laying off any staff and they are not closing any branches. This is from Access Bank management. So, of course, now the timing of that, it comes right after the bankers committee meeting with the central bank. So no layoffs in the banking sector as of now. But that's the debate that's on the ground now. And, do you protect the workers? Do you, or can you not dictate to private sector? And by the way, another thing, what makes the financial sector so special? Why are you so special? Just last week, we were talking about ARIC. ARIC slashed salaries by 80% in April. And they said in May, 90% of staff are going to be placed on leave with no salaries. So how about the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, the NCAA? They're a regulator. Can the NCAA call all the airlines like ARIC, Aero Contractors, and everybody else and say, hey, you can't lay off staff right now? Can we do that can NICOM do it in insurance for all the insurance players that are there? I mean, think of every regulator in every sector of the economy. Is financial services so special? So, and then again, you look at other climes and what they're doing. although I know what the argument to be, but still, the United States, the UK, other Canada, they are giving money to workers. If you've been laid off, they are putting like it is socialism in every aspect that you can think of. It's an emergency situation. They are putting money in people's hands. The United States just passed another stimulus bill of 400 and almost $500 billion specifically for small businesses so that they can weather the storm. This is after passing a $2.2 trillion stimulus. Now, of course, you can't compare Nigeria and America. And America is a 24, $25 trillion economy. Nigeria is a $400 billion economy. So they have the capacity to do this. We just don't have the money. What do? These things are not easy. Anyway, I see the messages. Let's see what our folks
MI here from
have to
Akoka
say.
says, for most Lagosians, securing the bag is important, but staying alive is important here.
Mm.
Adhering to these new guidelines will come with unintended consequences, e.g. inflation. My face mask just got me looking like Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat. Hashtag finish him. Rainmaker says, morning routers. Before my reaction, who are the members of the Bankers Committee? Bank MD inclusive?
Yes, that's the top MDs of each of the banks. They're the ones that are there representing the bank. I believe yes, maybe it's tier one or is it's tier two part of that. Anyway, it's the top level executives of the banks that are members of the committee, including reps from the CBN.
All right, Timothy says, greetings, and to the poll, add to the poll, dearest, social protection welfare and insurance packages for all employees, full part or contract, etc.
Well, that's a good point, Timothy. Well, the poll is already out there. We'll amend it for another poll. But yeah, do vote. Go ahead and vote. It's on Smooth FM at Smooth91 FM on Twitter. So go ahead and vote there as well.
Benga Kamu says, Reuters, Tinubu APC leader has called for a reduction of high interest rates. The report is on Punch today, and he said high interest rates and the poor were disincentives for investments. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, but you see, Benga, yeah, he has a point. But the high interest rates, again, there's default risk, there's cost of doing business here. You know, these are parts of the things that we're facing. But yes, I mean, but Kenya tried to do it. The Kenyan government capped interest rates, but later on they had to release the cap. You have to make things more conducive for the banks here for interest rates to come down. Remember now, I had that campaign where I was talking about interest rates need to come down, interest rates need to come down. So I agree with Tinubu on what he's saying. It's just that it's the product of the environment that we are in. But good message.
He also adds that he saw a truck loaded with people this morning and wondered if you were aware of the dangers at all. You cannot leave everything to market forces.
This community transmission, airports have been closed now for weeks.
Yep.
Community transmission is now how this thing is spreading. So again, I thank you for testifying to that. Anybody else, if you've seen any buses or cars transporting people, count and see if they're at 60% capacity, because I'm not seeing it with the buses that are moving around. So, and again, once more, news outlets everywhere have reported that Ghana saw a spike in infections 10 days after they released their own lockdown. So, yeah.
All right. Deepa is asking, can someone tell me where we are on this COVID-19, especially with the case of low testing? My point here is, since medical officials assume everyone has the virus already, also fatality rates seem to be very low in Nigeria. Furthermore, with an assumption that there's possible spread of the virus worldwide, with possible deaths occurring before index cases were announced, and high level of asymptomatic cases.
That
The
is a
question is,
dangerous one.
can we assume that we're getting close to building a herd immunity, also considering the fact that so many of us in this time have COVID-19 symptoms without reporting it?
We can't. I read in the New York Times that the herd immunity thing is still not much science backing it. There was a lady who caught it. She thought they released her from the hospital. She got the symptoms and she got it again. And she went back to being admitted. So the herd immunity thing, by the way, herd immunity is just dangerous. That one just said let everybody catch it and then hopefully.
And then the weak dies and the stronger.
It's Darwinism. It's so dangerous. So I don't know.
Survival of the fittest, no way. Funshaw says, good morning. What will be the effect of world's monetary system of China's withdrawal from the US dollar?
That one can't happen, Funshaw. That's just talk. China holds about 3 trillion of US debts. They're getting interest payments on that as far as US Treasury bills are concerned. The US dollar is the currency for the world. So how is China going to pull out? I mean, you are holding US debt, you're getting interest payments on it. You export so much to the US economy. China is not going anywhere.
All right, Otunuga from Ajas says, in spite of all the regulatory headwinds you mentioned, banks still make profits, even if they do not make mouth-watering profits this year because of the coronavirus pandemic. Workers should not be sacrificed at the last.
I know how Otunuga is voting. Otunuga, go and vote on the Twitter handle. Good point.
Yes, and Andy says, good morning. This is what makes Nigeria laughing stock. talk. You're telling businesses you aren't bailing us out to stop workers layoff. Do we want capitalism or something else?
Wow, you see that? Don't you love it?
I
Otunuga was
do.
on one side,
And then Andy is on the other
Andy's on
side.
the other side. This is why I
Dissenting.
love Business Express. Everybody has it. Yeah, the opinions are divided. I love it. I love it.
Mike, thank you so much, MI and Rainmaker. The engineers are working on it. Rotus, that's from Rainmaker. Oh, by the way, for those who are listening, you can watch on YouTube. Just
Yes.
go. We're streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/Smooth91 FM Lagos. Rainmaker says CBN must know that banks are private ventures of some people, and this is democracy for Pete's sake. No government or her agents can halt retrenchments by memo. Even PNB is planning on implementing Rosari reports.
Hey, the Oransaya reports. Yes.
That speaks to scrapping and merging of some MDAs. The unfortunate thing is that banks are the most regulated entities we have and arguably the most organized sector in Nigeria. So it's always easy to pick on them. At this point, for every sector, it's either you up your revenues or slash your salaries to stay in business, and the latter seems to be easy to accomplish. It's simple business sense. CBN and their role committee is just playing to the gallery. CBN should ensure the affected staff are duly compensated.
Thank you for that, Remeka. Again, once again, what we're asking is, should regulators intervene with private sector companies and prevent them from laying off staff? Of course, this is what's been happening with COVID-19 because of the impact on the economy. Just once again, in case you're just tuning in, the central bank released a circular saying that they had come together with the bankers committee and they decided to suspend all layoffs in the financial sector. And so I was asking, on the one hand, that's our poll. Go to @Smooth91FM on Twitter. We'll also be talking about it on the marketplace at 5:15 p.m. Today. Should regulators, on the one hand, do you protect workers because Nigerians are losing breadwinners, Nigerians who are putting food on the table for their families, losing jobs? Do you protect them? On the other hand, as Rainmaker and the others have expressed themselves, in this society, do you, or any society, any capitalist society, should a regulator be dictating to a private company how to handle their own operating costs, and whether or not, because operating costs are spiking? Still more messages. Yeah, go ahead.
Emma says the delicate line between commerce and morality. It's a tough call for employers right now. The pandemic does not just cost lives; it costs livelihoods. It's what it is.
It's tough.
And Orisha says, what if that was an espionage move by the A Bank to get the CBN to reduce LDR and CDR?
Yeah, see, IMF already said that CBN should reduce LDR. IMF said CBN should abolish should reduce CRR, that they are constricting banks. So
just can we break down these acronyms?
Yeah, sorry. Cash reserve ratio.
And LDR.
LDR is loan deposit ratio. They're saying that your loans to your deposit, you should increase the amount of loans you make to the real sector. But it's been tough on the bank. So there's that. Okay, the Oransaya report was mentioned. You folks can see that the government's hand has been forced. Cheta, I came aboard Smooth FM in 2011, right? Cheta was already, the superstar that he is on Freshly Pressed. Still, in fact, he's here today. Cheta, I believe,
yes, he is.
Cheta is going to be on Freshly Pressed today. So he's been singing about the Oransaya report now for years. That was how I even was familiar with Cheta, constantly saying they need to implement this thing. And I think it was 2012 when they finally put it in. Now it's been 8 years now. The government's hands has been forced. The one issue though is that at the time, the Oransaya report was calling for a reduction. I think it was about 102 agencies and MDAs and overlapping. Government has grown since then, so I don't know if they'll implement it to the letter with regards to what the report was calling for, or they have to increase the scale. Remember, Sanusi also said that 50% of civil service, or was it 40%, needs to be laid off because personnel costs for the government are too high. Isn't it ironic we're talking about personnel costs for government and we're also talking about personnel costs for banking sector? So you can see how high costs impact whether you're a private business or a government, and what you have to do. We'll have to see, when they will actually proceed to implement this. I know the Minister of Finance said that she wants it completed by October, and then she wants it to be reflected in the 2021 budget. So we'll see how things go. But look, for now, if you're in the financial sector, you're a worker, you've got some breathing room. You got some breathing room for now. We'll have to see how things go with regards to the outcome of COVID-19, how businesses adjust. What's Steven saying there? when
It says, well, you can lay off where the bank is ailing or making a loss, but not when the bank is declaring mega profits.
profits,
Where's the justification
where's
in
the
this?
justification? So
But to
Steven
be
needs
honest,
to
doesn't that
continue
make
that.
sense?
Yeah, but you see, I mean, it
I
makes
don't see.
sense. But when you look at how operating costs keep rising and rising, you know, again, if you look at the access situation, there are some streets where they have an access branch and a diamond branch,
Yes.
right? So it would make
Multiple.
economic sense that you have to, scale down. But again, once again, there are no layoffs happening. There's no scaling down, letting go of any branches. The bankers committee and the CBN have come together and said no layoffs. So we'll see how things proceed from there.
Fantastic, Rotus. Let's keep watch. Stay tuned to Smooth 98.1, Love Music, Love Life. Next, we will discuss the efforts we've been making in this fight against coronavirus. And if you missed any part of the show, go back to youtube.com/Smooth 91 FM Lagos to catch the bits on Business Express 91.
Business Express. Brought to
Thanks.
you by
Thank you. All the stream will upload.
Transaction Solutions. You can't depend on it.
Thanks, man. I'll catch you.
Business
Yes.
Express. Brought to you by